Hi, welcome. In this video, this is part three of my videos regarding the objection point. Okay, when it comes to reconciling, again, talk about the core ingredients, influence, and control through a specific, intentional, interaction-based method. Again, which is critical. Okay, when it comes to a predictable outcome as it relates to diminishment of unwanted behavioral issues as perception of dogs change in the relationship. And so here again, we talk about even certain devices. I talk about, devices are not conducive to being able to change perceptions that way by way of the role of influence intercepting an expressed state. Okay, understand that you may get a physical response, physical control, but you may not get relationship change itself. Okay, so you may have, say, a better walk at the physical level, but not a better relationship. And so this is where you take the remote collar or the halty off the dog. It's like I'm just seem like I'm back to square one. This happens all the time. This type of device awareness because it's about it making sense to the dog. And making sense part, it's about lining up to say, looking at you through that device properly. Okay, even the crate. You wonder why dogs go crazy in that crate. The crate's about control. So if you're not seeing the right way in the relationship to begin with, the dog is going to fight against that to say, "Well, this don't make sense. I'm in control of everything, and this mug is trying to put me in the crate." Okay, I mean, just think about it. It's all about relationship. Okay, so when I say about how everything branches off of that. Okay, so here it's the same thing. When I look at everything, because understand something here, everything matters. Okay, how you move lines it up. So when I watch a trainer and they're not moving, because understand this is a specific process. Okay, the method matters. I mentioned that it's not just some little detail or a footnote at the bottom of a balance sheet. Okay, this is like everything. Okay, this is a central theme of the system. So again, when your trainers go on, like in here, what Murdaugh did, he took a clip of. So I'm talking through all this. Took a clip of video of me, stopping with the dog, and dog is with control intentional control happening, and he's doing what, again, nothing different. Okay, so I understand when guys like Murdaugh go on, you go, well, what makes him any different than any other trainer having that type of objection based on appearances, right? It's not, because he tries to line this up with his own picture, right? Here saying, well, just let's just get flowing here. But look at Dale's, look at that reaction. Well, I'm talking about, let's talk about that. Let's reconcile, okay, the reaction to the relationship properly. Because if you want good outcomes, right, the foundation has to be right. You got to have the right conversation. That's not happening here. Okay, that's something that he doesn't talk about or he skips over. I talked about him not answering the question of the century. Well, he didn't. He couldn't. He just glossed. He just jumped because he doesn't. There's no depth anyway. So how can you talk about something when there's no depth? Like him and I couldn't have that. He can't have that conversation because he's not dialed in that way. It's no different than a balanced dog trainer or whomever. But it's not like rocket science where you have to connect some dots here. But you can put it to the test. See, that's the thing. This isn't like just me talking about something. You take everything I say on these videos and you can test it. Okay, that's it. But it's the choice whether you want to do that or not. And then so you people can take it however they want. But it's not like I'm being very clear about things, putting information out. That's why I want to do this video, because I've taken out a bunch of videos because some of these types of videos were intermixed with a whole bunch of other, just a person. I just got fed up. I was like, I just get rid of them. Shouldn't have done that. Should have kept the one, but I'm leaving these up because this is going to be about information. Okay, I may, really object to how Murdaugh is conducting himself, even the whole member area thing. I talk about that. I said that's a disgrace. I mean, don't do stuff like that. I mean, it's just like ask nicely, take that video down. But see, when you're angry and you just want to get personal, right? It's not about just doing the right thing and then say, let's just stick to the information here. So he can go on all day long, but I don't engage a certain way, cheap shots. No, just watch someone's actions. That was a big deal. That's a big deal for me. I would never go into his little, whatever Patreon area and yank some video out of there and post it up and do that. I'd never do that. He did it. So, yeah, but why? I'll just use his public video. These videos are public, so I'm not going to do that. But then even how I respond. So he's just like, it's just this nastiness in the dog training world. It's just like when I talk about ethics and morals. Well, see, this is the operating kind of frequency of a lot of these trainers, because if you're not talking about the real issue, guess what? It's going to get personal, right? And that's why you see so much of this in the dog training world. But I'm focusing. Okay, here's the information. Okay, if you're a dog owner, pay attention. You end up with a bad picture. It doesn't matter about, understand this isn't specific here to Murdaugh either. I'm not just looking at Murdaugh. This is about saying about Murdaugh that way. Okay, this is almost like a illustration. You can apply this everywhere. Okay, so period. But I am going to respond because he put a clip of video in here. And he's trying to line it up a certain way, being dishonest about it. Saying, no, I'm going to talk through it and say, okay, let's talk about the reaction. Let's talk about the picture. Let's talk about a method, and then anyone can put it to the test. Okay, he's conveniently leaving out certain things here, because that's just how these trainers are marketing. So let's play some more of this.
Then I recommend watching every video in this series because there's so many details and bits of information that.
So it's even right here. See, I talk about this. He's not lined up here. Okay, this is about the right conversation. How you move matters. You watch my videos, you'll see very intentional the integrity of what I'm doing.
That I go over with Cooper and his owners that you will.
Because then it becomes about the device. And you see balanced dog trainers do this a lot. It's like they're standing there, they'll talk, the remote collar's on the dog. The dog is, investing, already starting to look around and everything. They're not dialed in that way at all. To them, it's like, oh, it begins the moment that I focus in, start using that device. No, it's got to make sense to the dog. It's a conversation. It's like, think about when you encounter a child as a parent. Your parenting style, like what you do, it's automatic. Okay, you don't have to think about certain things. It's just part of who you are, how you think. Okay, that's what it needs to become. You are the system, okay, because it's about your role.
Will find very useful. Some of the key takeaways from this session was that we needed to use the Halti on Cooper in order to redirect his attention because he liked to scan the environment.
And again, I say that, but it's not the type of tool that can be intentional with intercepting the way I talk about. Okay, it's more of a physical control. That's why even the pinch collar, same thing. That device is not conducive to be able to, express the way I talk about, being dialed in, to make those adjustments. Okay, in a way that it's like surgical. Okay, way that the interplay of influence in certain moments in real time. You watch my videos, how I'm doing it. It's just like, it's just like you want to line it up. You want it to be clarity to the dog. Okay, it's not about devices. So the devices do matter, which the type of devices that you use.
So I needed to be able to stop him from doing that, keep his eyes forward, focused on me.
When he gets him.
He'll say that, but that's not what he's doing. Even right here, see the head turning around. Okay,
Front of me, this pulls himself.
Okay, maybe that's a good idea.
see, and then it's very clicky. It's like edit it. It's like, okay, that gone. And, you don't see me edit. I don't edit. I don't do that. You don't see this type of choppy thing here.
Kevin, you should watch Wes Walker.
Sure.
He's doing it better than I am. But
Same thing. So here, see this dog. You see the stress. You can hear the stress on the dog. Dog's whining, carrying on, because it's about clarity. Okay, understand that this is about the right conversation that's clear to the dog through your movements and through how you're intercepting. Should be smooth, right? His movements aren't about that. It's more physically focused on just the physical part of, okay, the dog. Okay,
The
not
whole
about the
idea
mind.
is
Okay, all the clip and clip.
attention at is everything. I'm doing this.
See, more clipping, just like.
You gotta stop that. The whole idea
So Pat is doing right by trying to keep his head.
See, he's not. So when talking clients and stuff, I mean, I'm not. It's just like show. I mean, that's the thing you see with a lot of these trainers. It's about being dialed in, right?
Yeah, I want him focused. Anytime you.
Because at that level, the dog's beside him somewhat, right? But it's about the focus, the dog. Okay, it's about that. It's like being that interplay of that. Go watch my videos. You'll see the clear differences here.
See those ears perk up and he's scanning the environment. I gotta stop that because that's where him reacting starts.
right, we need to untrain behaviors.
Well, we're addressing the state of mind. The state of mind when he kind of puffed. He gets.
So he'll say that. Watch it here. So he'll say certain things. What I talk about trainers will say things that sound good. Okay, but the reality of how that plays into what they're actually doing to intercept the way I described is not there that way. Okay, so it's the same thing. You talk about leadership, you throw certain words out, but what is the actual method? Okay, how's that play into being dialed in the way that I described? See, that's what makes the difference.
It's tense and he's looking. I don't want that, because if he sees something.
Because even here, okay, if you line this up, this is because we're going to get to this clip video of where he takes one of my clips here and starts to go on about tension on the leash and all this stuff. Okay, but understand that when I talk about control, okay, think of it as the conversation you have with a child. Okay, knees touching, or you're in the child's airspace, in their space a certain way, in their personal space a certain way. Okay, that's where it's going to be revealed. Okay, your role. Okay, the interplay of that is specific. The integrity of that in terms of how you're engaging. Here, it's just understand it's the same thing. When you have this type of thing happening with the loose leash, and this type of the integrity is gone from like the majority of the moments here with how Kevin is interacting with his dog, it doesn't reveal. Okay, and you'll hear the dog will still be under a level of stress throughout because it doesn't provide that level of comfort that way. Because really, that's what it is about relationship. But it's also about forcing the cards down on the table. Okay, I understand that, because it's about intent. One of the big things the dog understanding, because when I'm putting a certain level of intentional control through the leash and alignment, how everything, the integrity of that through the interactions, okay, the dog understands intent, but also it affects the mind in a very specific way. So when the dog is expressing control and trying to fixate and trying to, wrap their mind around other dogs coming and people, right? What it does is it'll bring a level of desperation on that dog, right? Because it's the type of conversation where I'm basically expressing through, control and how that's affecting the mind to bring the focus onto me. The dog will start to fight against that. Okay, right away, even before. So that will reveal in itself through that integrity of how influence and control are reconciled that way. Not happening here. So you don't get that type of a test or real time information even to be able to assess or change because it has specific to that. It has to be reconciled that way. Okay, so you get to a point where you do get to the loose leash or once the dog's perceptions change, but that's your starting point. The integrity isn't here in what he's doing. Okay, so he's talking about the focus and stuff like that, but not the way I described how to set that in motion, how to establish that properly. That's not part of what he does. It's not through control coming through the leash that way, or specific to lining it up, even in terms of the dog being right beside. It's just like the shadow coming over the dog. It's the reason why the dog doesn't want to be right there. Okay, understand? Because that's the reveal. It's forcing the cards down. There's no forcing cards down here.
Then he's already anticipating, and then he reacts. But if I get him into a state of mind where now he's just following me, he's calm, I want him paying attention to me.
See this whole thing. So here, and what he'll do too, okay, as he moves forward, he tries to. You see this on another video series I have. Just put just as little type of come along, control or influence on this dog as possible, right? Because it's about what? It's about a picture, right? But those core ingredients aren't being reconciled in the right way to actually establish the right picture. Okay, this is just about movement. That's a problem. Okay, understand because the core ingredients are what create change, reconciled properly. Understand they have to be reconciled, right? That's what reveals and that's what changes. That's not what his method's about. So when I say I have a problem with the loose leashes and stuff, of course I do. At a certain point of the process itself, because it's about the relationship at that point in time of the relationship where you get a relationship problem. Okay, that's where everything needs to come together properly. Okay, to change. Right, that's not what this is about. This is just about I need to get a certain picture. But the question is it the right picture? I would suggest absolutely not. I wouldn't trust this picture because to know is to know. To know and see that's the great news is that you can know by applying what I'm saying to actually put it to the test. Okay, you can know.
You see how he didn't move till I started moving? If I stop, he should stop with me.
So same thing. So it's that whole movement thing, but it's the same thing. Dogs are amazing. Understand they'll start doing this stuff, and you'll be assuming that movement or that come along that movement represents something it's not. That okay, that means the dog is seeing me the right way. That's why trainers will use treats to try to gain focus with the dog. Doesn't mean that it's the context of that focus, how you're perceived in the relationship, how you're fading in to the relationship the right way. Because you can use treats and you can bribe your way, try to bribe responses and even generate certain level of focus. But think of it as like the selfish child scenario where the the child's going to within the permissive parenting style going to a certain parent because they get what they want. So the responses, what underpin those responses, okay, themselves, it's about relationship. It's about the motives that underpin those responses, how they tie in. Not just about response. Okay, so it's a type of power play. Okay, so this has to naturally transition into a type of power play, but the type of power play where the dog comes into agreement with. So it is a type of struggle scenario, but not meant to create a war at all. Understand, this is about a conversation. Okay, this is not the right conversation here.
I should be able to drop the leash. He's still showing me that he's with me.
And there are other principles as far as introducing boundaries and structure while we're walking to help Cooper understand what the expectations are, but also to create a follower mentality within Cooper.
See, so all the right words, right language, but the method matters. Okay, understand that like those core ingredients that have to be reconciled. They're not, it's specific. So you hear the right language in certain things, but it's not just about language. It's not just about because you hear this through the balanced dog training community. You hear certain language, certain terms being used, certain examples being used. It comes down to the core tenet, the actual method itself.
I want the dog's mind to be as calm as possible. That way, everything I do has the greatest chance of influencing that dog, and I can tap into the parts of that.
It's the same thing. So you talk about calm. It's just like when you watch the Showdown with Holly video with Cesar Millan. I mean, go watch that video. It lines up with Murdaugh's idea of things, his methodology. This thing about leashes and lines and about assumptions. Because that dog, Holly, looked calm too. Yeah, I mean, looks at especially when you get into what I call the 1 percentile dogs. Okay, it's so you have to be connected. You got to, you got to be dialed in. That's how you avoid getting blindsided. Okay, you might get away with this, but you're not really getting away with it because the change issue. That's a problem. I mean, how much change is happening with these dogs? It's the core ingredients aren't reconciled the way I described. You got a problem. Okay, it's about being intentional. Okay, that's the thing. Being dialed in and intentional.
That dog I need to get it to follow me.
The rules of thumb I use for walking are I want him following and not trying to cross the natural boundaries of the sidewalk. We're giving structure to the
So same thing, physical. Like look at this dog's head just turned right totally around. Okay. Look at
walk. The calmer
and he doesn't do anything then it clips forward, right? Not doing anything to say, I'd be like, hey, starting to, apply some more control in that leash to affect that dog's mind. Right? Because it's, this whole thing about fading out. Right? The focus is generated, right? That's about once a dog has gained that level. So the dog's like turn, I mean, come on. But it's just you have to be dialed in that way.
he is, he's a lot less likely to fight. All these displays of him trying to take control of everything just kind of go away. The smelling, we want to discourage. The Halti will do that for me.
Same thing. Dog's head spun right off in the background here, right? Because he's focused just like balanced dog trainers, physical, not about being dialed into the state of mind in terms of the head turning inwards, right? You see, if you watch my videos, you'll see the head coming in at an angle. Doesn't be left dog have to be looking up in my eyes. It's that inwardness. You'll see that inwardness happening. You'll see that interplay of that in out. It's just like how I'm working the dog's mind. I'm breaking those connections, but not because I'm doing it in a way which is very proactive. It's not meant to be cranking and yanking. Okay. It's, because if you're proactive, influence is happening in a proactive way. You're intercepting just as the dog is starting to fixate. See, that's the key. You're not delaying or waiting. That's how you're gonna be more successful. That's the dog's gonna be more agreeable to that. Okay. So when we talk about and this goes into the tension on the leash, okay, it's a kinetic principle. Okay, there's what I call a baseline there. So if I'm working with dogs that have a high level of control, that baseline, because you'll see here in the video coming up, the little clip he puts in here, that baseline is right there because it gives me the ability to be able to intercept that dog's state of mind very quickly. Okay, so it's just like all I'm doing is that baseline, which the dog comes into agreement with. It does, expose the dog's state of mind at the same time. All right, it's that control. What it does is the dog understands intent. So what it does is when you have that level of baseline there, the dog understands, senses, knows I'm in control here. It's not meant to choke the dog. See, a lot of people, and what they do here, okay, is the reactions themselves from the dog, okay, they will assume wrongly, okay, because it's totally out of context. Because many of them are following this type of thing is a fake picture. Okay, they're bribing dogs, so they're not even dialed into certain reactions, certain ways. But then they themselves have a dog where they have generated a fake image of change, typically with a lot of these dog owners, and then their feelings, right, are all in play, and then they're not happy anyway, okay, because they have a dog that the relationship isn't good, and then they get upset at trainers or anyone who's like who have certain reactions because it's like it's just part of that whole trap thing that happens, okay, with people. But again, the baseline itself, okay, allows, okay, the trainer, the dog owner to intercept in a very quick way. Okay, so all you do is you just when the dog's starting to invest, their head's turning towards another dog, you just up in that baseline a little bit to break that connection. And the dog comes into agreement, which means the head will turn back in towards, right? And then you go back to your original baseline. You just take a little bit off. So if you watch my video, it's very subtle. It's just kind of but it's hard to see or notice, right? But that baseline, and typically sometimes the baseline is just enough to keep that collar up, okay, in the kind of ready position or up in the area. So there's, we have that baseline on. It's not like a tremendous amount of pressure happening at any given moment. It's just allowing me to be in that zone, okay, and be able to work off of that kinetic method, okay, that way. It's very effective. Otherwise, think about it. If you have a dog that, and this is the cranking and yanking problem, right? If you don't have that baseline on that way and you have the collar down, right, it's somewhat loose, and suddenly the dog lunges or the dog's head's turning, and you're trying that, what happens? That jerky cranking craziness and then you're in more conflict because you're in a reactive posture. Okay, it's like you're delayed. It's like picture like the parent who waits for the child to go into the selfish child, okay, to go into the toy aisle, and they wait. This is what kind of balanced dog training represents. The child starts pulling all the toys down off the shelves, and they're like, "Oh, now I'm going to jump in." Well, now you get a tremendous problem because now you waited, you're delayed, you're reactive. Versus what I'm talking about is like having a conversation before you leave the house or being dialed in before you even get up out of bed that you're got all the information you already know that you're dealing with a problem with with your child. Child's become very out of control, selfish. And the moment you get a shot, you're dialed in. You're in the child's airspace, okay, differently in a intentional way to affect change. So before you go to the store, you're already laying out the expectation. So they go in the toilet. It's just like a look, right? Hey, and that's the difference. Is you're being proactive. There's nothing wrong with being proactive. Proactive just means you're aware of and you're dialed into the reality of the problem you're having. And so when I'm working off the baseline, see people go crazy when they see, which Murdaugh does. So I said Murdaugh's no different than these other trainers because he's not dialed in the way I talk about. But when you have that tension there, a certain level of tension and control, it's going to reveal and it's going to change. But it's going to give you the advantage. Okay, when it comes to the dog's state of mind, I'm able to work off of that, and then I'll even turn. I'll work off an offset angle to control the level of challenge in terms of putting that picture more behind me. So I'm doing certain things as I'm moving for the dog to be successful. Understand that, but you're gonna have certain moments of challenge, but understand that it's all about the conversation. Okay, when I'm doing it, I'm relaxed. I'm not mad. I'm not angry. It's always controlled. Usually, the dog is that I'm working off is across the street. I'm working angles, and then I'm stopping too. Like I'll have those moments, and the dog gets a break, do other things, and then I just work off of that. It's just like that's how you introduce it. That's how you do it. And the dog, everything makes sense because you're doing the same thing all the time. Understand that my personality type, okay, how I'm doing it, it's like it's built in. So as soon as I interact with the dog, guess what? It makes total sense because it's a default thing I'm doing. It's like it's like your parenting style. When it's established, it makes sense to the child saying, okay, he's consistent or she's consistent. Here, that's not part of the system, okay? Like, it's totally different. It's physical, right? It's got to be relational. It's got to be dialed into a dog's state of mind. So we'll stop part 3 here as we get closer to my little clip here. But I'm laying laying the groundwork for the clip. Okay, when you see the clip, you understand, what's going on here. But so it's like it's very, it's almost dishonest with what he's doing. It really is. He's trying to take things out of context here. But as I go through and talk through it all, you understand that okay, because the question you have to ask at the end, what would you rather have? Would you rather have this type of picture here, considering everything I'm saying on these videos, or would you rather have a proper foundation when it comes to change and knowing that a real picture is being painted the right way? Okay, understand that's what matters. Because it's about caring. I'm not just doing things because people assume a caring thing says, "Oh, Dale's a dog abuser. He hates dogs and all that." Listen, don't believe that stuff. I mean, these trainers, what are they doing? They're being very, I say it's being very dishonest with what they're doing, and especially with how they're trying to take certain clips of my videos and twist them and not provide content because they're not dialed in anyway. They're just looking at certain reactions or certain things and you're saying, "Oh, look at this. Look how terrible that is." Enough is enough. I mean, with these individuals, because you can layer that into just how bad the dog training world is, and look at all the bad outcomes. Look at all the owners struggling in their relationships with their dogs, and all people getting bitten and blindsided. Those things are only going on because of what is being information being put out there in a way in which isn't honest at all. I'll have the conversation. I'll talk through it all. People will say, "Well, Dale, you're doing the same thing." Well, because it takes maybe 100 times for someone to get it. But apply critical thinking. Ask questions. There's nothing hidden here. So I'll say, and a reminder, my books are now available on Amazon. So I've switched them all over to Amazon Kindle. So all my books, if you're looking for my books, you can check out Amazon. You'll see them on Kindle. The reason for that, I had a call inquiry about one of my books from a different country. So the issue about language and being able to translate and all that. So it's one of my police books. So I decided to move them all over onto Kindle to make them available through Kindle. So if you're looking for my training guides, they're all over on Kindle. So you can find them there. They're readily available. Just do a search under my name and they'll all pop up. So if you're looking for books, now the member area, okay, it's available. I have a wealth of information. So I'm going through these videos providing lots of good insight. But again, if you're looking for and talk about certain things, certain, in terms of, influence control and the thing about a baseline, all the stuff I talk about, you can check out my member area. And here's the thing, I have courses too, which gets right into this stuff. My introductory course, these in the advanced course, especially the advanced course. In the advanced course, I have a wealth of exclusive video content nobody's seen except for the people taking those courses. So, but designed for at almost like a trainer level. So there's a ton of wealth of information to the system. I got courses. You can go as far as you want in terms of being invested in the system. And so when I talk about certain principles through these videos, if you're really like, okay, I don't really, man, I want to get this. Well, there's I have the consult, FaceTime consult. So you can, it's like an hour consult. You can ask me whatever questions you want through FaceTime. I'll be more than happy to answer them. If you want to go further, there's the member area. There's my training books. There's the courses. There's everything available. So, but this is a complete system, and it really is the original source system. So I'm not like Murdaugh, okay? I'm not just following somebody. I'm not just, you know, watching a few Cesar Millan videos and sprinkling some Brandon Fouché on top and running with it. Okay. I mean, I don't mean that to be, I mean, I will be cute here with some of it because it's ridiculous. This system, I mean, the amount of time that went into this, developing the system of training, no one really has a clue of. These trainers come on. That's why I talk to all this stuff, because, you know, you gotta understand certain, if you don't understand certain concepts here, because one of the big things I talk about, the false picture, to the issue of control itself, what that can offer up. I mean, it's incredible. These trainers aren't dialed into the realities of that stuff. So that's a problem. So you get these dogs, I call them 1 percentile dogs. I say, good luck with that. I mean, you wonder why bad things happen to people. Well, you need to be dialed in properly here, the reality of what's going on and what that means. So, but I'll say I'll do another part or two here, leading up to my clip, but laying the foundation for all of it. Thanks for watching.